Good evening, everyone, and welcome. This is our regular meeting of the San Felipe Del Rio Consolidated Independent School District Board of Trustees. Today, Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you. And also, I'd like to remind board members, I was given this instruction by our staff here to make sure that we speak into the microphone so that they can record, again, our votes and our decisions, and they can hear, and also for the public that is listening online. So again, if you could, when you speak, could you please pull the microphone a little bit closer? Madam Secretary, would you do us the honor of calling roll?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me? Mr. Contreras?
Present.
Ms. Guanajuato Webb?
Present.
Ms. Haynes? Not here.
Not here today.
Mr. Mesa?
Here.
Mr. Overfelt?
Present.
Mr. Smith?
Present.
Myself? Yes, I'm here. Sir, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Let the record show that we do have a quorum of board members and that this meeting was duly called in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551. At this time, we'll have opening ceremonies, first with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go on the agenda now to item 4, recognitions. First item we have is 4A, recognition of the media tech students participating in the after-school tutorial program. Ida Gomez, I'm sorry.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. In January of 2022, a few months ago, the elementary campuses began their after-school curricular activities. We keep the students from 3 to 5. We tutor in math, and we tutor in reading. But to entice the students, one of the activities that has really developed is the high school students from fine arts and different departments come and they do sessions with the students. So you'll see here that we started this incentive or initiative in January. We currently have about 780 students. 4th and 5th graders were the bulk of it, and we recently added 3rd graders. So 780 3rd through 5th grade students are still participating. The focus is, of course, the learning loss to increase math and reading scores. The students in 4th and 5th grade have to complete something for the hours for the House Bill 4545. That means 30 additional hours in math or reading, depending which STAR assessment they did not pass, or both. In an effort to keep the kids interested, our little ones, our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, and continuing to come, the program includes, as I mentioned, the extracurricular activities. These are taught by Del Rio High School juniors and seniors. These include students from the athletic program, the fine arts program, Queen City Bells, the band, the cheer, and our media tech department. All of the students do get paid for being there, so it's a nice incentive for them to receive funding to save, especially our seniors. And they've done a wonderful job working with our students. However, there's one program that has been very consistent across the district, and that's who we're recognizing tonight, which is the media department. We have 2 outstanding sponsors. We had thought about, we can recruit students But who's going to develop the lessons? So just because we bring a bunch of 17-year-olds, they're going to be enthused, but somebody had to create lessons. So that's where the discussion was made to have sponsors. For our media department, it is Ms. Jessica Guanajuato and Mr. Herrera. Ms. Guanajuato is with us this evening. It's right here. And some of the students that are participating in the media department after-school activity are also with us. We have Samantha Brewer, Cassandra Brewer, Alejandro Garcia, Luis Jimenez, Paul Hackensmesser, and Alexia Nuncio. You'll see there that they represent Dr. Lonnie Green, Garfield, at North Heights and Lamar Elementary. That's where these students actually go and assist 4 days a week. Well, what is it that they do? There's an introduction to storytelling where the students develop a backstory and a plot for film. This came about because of all the TikTok interest. Kids are really, really into creating these little short films, writing dialogue, formatting a script, log lines and film pitching, shot compositions and storyboarding, and cinematography. But this is the complicated part right here. Ms. Jessica Guanajuato actually puts these lessons together, and they're too small for you to see. However, I did put a copy at your desk today. You'll see there that it started with something as simple as an overview, an icebreaker. Then you'll see some of the titles: introducing storytelling, sharing, discussing character development, writing dialogue. She'll list resources and the actual steps that the students have to do to maximize the time. You'll see another, I believe I put 3 weeks of lesson plans here. The next one goes into formatting a script and writing dialogue. That is the log lines and the film pitching that we were talking about earlier. Of course, there's shot comparisons, compositions. Then the last week is when they move into the cinematography, and you'll see that that was like a 4-day lesson. She doesn't just give the lessons to the students. Her and Mr. Herrera discuss them, and then they work with the students to actually say, these are the materials you're going to use, and these are the steps. Carrying juniors and seniors, transferring that information to 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, that's a skill set. That's difficult. So they do have to break it down, and they do need to keep the kids interested. And they've done a tremendous job, not just with being at the campus every day, but also with the development of what it is they're doing. Students actually look forward to tomorrow. As they come up to the stage for a picture, I do want to show, we do have a picture at North Heights Elementary where we have Luis Jimenez, who is with us tonight. We also have Dylan Tucker and Nexiel Pineda, who could not be here tonight. At Dr. Fermin Calderon, we have Orellon Hernandez, another participant who could not be here tonight. Here we have Dylan Tucker again, and then we have the Brewer sisters, Samantha Brewer and Cassandra Brewer, and they're representing a different campus. So we just wanted to spotlight them tonight. Our after-school program has been a huge success, 780 students staying 4 days a week, but it wouldn't be possible without these students who come in every day. They're prepared, they work with our students, and they're sure in their craft. And imagine the interest now in our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders for that CTE pathway. At this time, Ms. Guanajuato and her students would like to shake your hand.
Thank you for what you're doing. Very nice.
And if you'll come to the middle for a picture. There's Mr. Willard on top. Again, students, we just want to thank you. You've done a great job with our little ones. Ms. Guanajuato, you and Mr. Herrera have really come to the stage to really help us. Again, it's not as easy as hitting a baseball, is what I'm trying to say. It's not as easy as putting together a cheer. This is actually something that takes a lot of planning and preparation. So we just want to thank them for all their help. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mesa, could I?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the daunting task of getting us caught back up, you know, I mean, hats off to you. Great job. There couldn't be enough said when students step up to the plate and help us pull us out of this knot that we're in. Thank you so much. And thanks for Mrs. Guanajuato for putting it all together and organizing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I'd like to also just applaud the effort because, again, these are future students that probably will go into Media Tech once they get the interest and are motivated for these projects. Thank you, Ms. Guanajuato. And yes, we're trying to recover some of the learning loss that is going on, and I think this is a very worthwhile project. Anyone else would like to comment? Yes, Ms. Wood.
I just want to say thank you to the students. If you all would stand up one more time. I think that you all are doing an amazing job. I know you're following the plans and direction from your teachers, but you go the extra mile to also prepare, not just follow the lessons, but I believe you also do PowerPoints. Is that correct? And who designs those? Who develops those? Okay, the sisters. Okay, and then you share them with everybody else. Thank you so much for everything you're doing because, and we are just joined by 2 other students. I don't know what your names are, but I'm sure Ms. Gomez will let us know in a minute. But thank you for what you're doing because you are taking it one step further to the elementary level to encourage the students not only to read and to write, but to move forward. And Mr. Smith hit it right on the nail when he mentioned, thank you for stepping up to the plate and doing what you're doing for the elementary students and their motivation to the media department and the CTE. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, you are correct. 2 more students just joined us. Luis Jimenez, who has been working at North Heights Elementary. Oh, that didn't come up. And Paul Hockenmesser, who has been helping us at Lamar Elementary. So they're still part of the team. Thank you both, students.
Yes, Dr. Rios.
Willard, can you make sure that you snap a picture of the entire group out in front, anywhere wherever you pick, because 2 others joined.
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Next item we have is item 4B, Proclamation Month of the Military Child, Sandra Hernandez.
Good evening, Mr. Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. I'd like to recognize at this point we do have our Chief Child and Youth Services, Melissa Menchaca from the Office of Family and Support Services. I'd like to recognize her if she could come forward. And also our school-based liaison, Jeanette Gomez. And these ladies have been instrumental in partnering with the school district and Laughlin Air Force Base military families so that we could provide the best services to our military-connected students. So we're going to have you come on the stage. April is designated as the month of the military child, underscoring the important role military children play in the armed forces community. Sponsored by the Department of Defense, Military Community, Family Policy, the month of the military child is a time to applaud military families and their children for the daily sacrifices and the challenges that they overcome. This year, we also celebrate the 35th anniversary of the month of the military child which is part of the legacy of former Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger, who established the Defense Department commemoration in 1986. So without further ado, I'm going to pass this over to Mr. Mesa, who will read the proclamation on behalf of the district.
Thank you, Sandra. I have the proclamation. Whereas military youth of today and tomorrow promise to be among the best, the most active and involved populations in our nation's history, and whereas most military children will attend 6 to 9 different school systems throughout their lives from kindergarten through 12th grade, and whereas the social emotional well-being of children in military families is essential to their success and has a direct impact on the resiliency of military families serving our country, and whereas San Felipe Del Rio Consolidated Independent School District is committed to easing transitions for children of military families and ensuring that they are afforded the same opportunities and educational successes as other children and are not delayed in achieving their educational goals. Whereas the San Felipe Del Rio CISD is honored to work with our teachers and staff, children and families, and other entities and organizations in Del Rio and Laughlin Air Force Base community to provide sustained support to our young heroes and address their distinct needs as they transition between military installations and schools. Whereas San Felipe Del Rio CISD dedicates Purple Up for our Military Kids Day for our young heroes. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Raymond P. Mesa, Board President of the San Felipe Del Rio CISD, Superintendent of Schools, do hereby join our Commander-in-Chief and President of the United States, Joe Biden, and Honorable Governor of the State of Texas, Greg Abbott, in proclaiming April as Month of the Military Child. Proclaimed this 19th day of April, 2022, in witness whereof I have hereto set my hand in the seal of the San Felipe Del Rio CISD District this 19th day of April 2022 and have caused the seal to be affixed. I think I have to. Thank you very much.
And at this time, we would invite the Board President, Mr. Mesa, the Superintendent, and Board members to join our military Laughlin representatives for just a quick snap of a picture in commemoration of the April as Month of the Military Child. Okay.
Next item we have on our agenda is citizens to be heard. We have no forms turned in today, so we don't have anyone. We'll go on to item 7, board members report, annual announcement on continuing education of board members. And I believe that's mine. Under State Board of Education rule, completing required continuing education each year of service is a basic obligation and expectation of any sitting board member. As board president, I'm required to announce the name of each member who, as of that member's anniversary of election to the San Felipe de Rossi ISD Board of Trustees, has completed the required continuing education, has exceeded the required continuing education, and is deficient in meeting the required continuing education. I'm happy to report that I have all the report in front of me. The following board members have completed the required update to the basic orientation to the Texas Education Code after each session of the Texas Legislature, which is a post-legislative update. Again, we have 7 board members that have completed that. Raymond P. Mesa, Linda Webb, Diana Gonzalez, Joshua Overfield, Amy Haynes, Fred Contreras. Team building training, happy to report that all 7 board members. Additional continuing education, all 7 board members. Evaluating and improving student outcomes, again, 7 board members. Identifying and reporting abuse, trafficking, and other maltreatment of children, all 7 board members. Exceeding required education training. Myself have exceeded the education training by 25.7 additional hours. Board member Linda Webb exceeded the required training by 23.75 additional hours. Board member Diana Gonzalez exceeded the required training by 28.25 continuing education hours. Board member Amy Haynes exceeded by 20.25 additional hours. Board member Joshua Overfield by 9.0 additional hours. And board member Ken Smith exceeded the required amount of continuing education by 3.75 hours. And the trophy goes to Diana Gonzalez.
Chocolate helps. Chocolate helps. Thank you.
Chocolate helps. I'm glad that, again, everyone has completed the required training, and again, by law, I'm supposed to report this training. Thank you again, board members, for attending the training that is required. Next item we have is reports, item 8. The first item we have is item 8A, website, parent and student resources, Ida Gomez.
Good evening again. President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. You've heard of the curriculum dashboard. That's where all our teachers keep all their lesson plans, all their resources, anything that they would need to teach. One of the developments that we've been working on is the parent portal, the parent dashboard. This would be a place for parents to utilize any software that we have. And this goes through the summer, so we really want to launch it in the next couple of weeks. We want to tie it into the report cards. We want it to go out as a big summer program. Tonight I'm going to demonstrate how a parent would log into it and what it is that they would see. Mr. Mesa has been giving us guidance throughout the year, asking us to find resources, especially for our bilingual parents, where the books would be read out loud to students. It has been a daunting task, but we have been able to locate some sites, and we have been able to get them onto the website, either through TA or through other platforms that are allowing it. So a parent would just come to our regular website, as you see here, and they would log in under Parent. Right below it, you will see Parent, the curriculum page for parents. Same site that a teacher would go to. However, a parent, there's different categories, and they would come in under family and student, and they would click. At this point, they would choose a grade level. This is very restricted. It can't be open to the public because we have contracts with our vendors. Because of that, a student has to be registered in our district to use the site. So you'll see that a parent would come in and say, for instance, I have a second grade student. and then they would enter their student's ID number. I've borrowed one for today's demonstration. And then, of course, we have to ask if I'm not a robot. It's asking me for motorcycles. I click on anything having to do with motorcycles. Oh, there's one more. You verify, then you log in. So that's that extra step. Right here, what happens is we have every parent email at the campus. That's how they get report cards. That's how they get any information now. So a parent would say, use my primary email. In this case, we have it on file. We would enter the same email and continue. This is just to make sure. You'll see here that we have had parents ask, what if I'm in a divorce situation? We have a secondary email. So it does not just have to be one email. This also lets us know who's been on it. Once they continue, it takes them here, and what happens is there's a code that gets sent to them, and they have 10 minutes to actually put the code here and respond, and it takes you. For lack of time, since this is going to somebody I borrowed it from, I'll show you exactly what it would look like, possibly. I wanted to get to the, right here. So as a second grade parent, you would see that they have access to Del Real Cares, Gifted and Talented. This particular child is gifted and talented. Second grade ELA, second grade science, second grade social studies, and second grade math. Parents only have access to yearly documents, things of that sort, not actual assessments. But up here at the top, they have access to something called My Apps. And that's where a parent would click. And any app that we have that's accessible to students would actually be on this page. You'll see here Unite for Literacy, for instance. It's a K-3 reading program. Just by clicking it, they can choose any book. We can make salsa, for instance.
Let's Make Salsa by Gwen Lawrence.
They click on the pages and it'll continue to read it to them once they hit the
Do you
little
like fresh salsa? It is easy
voice.
to make and fun to eat.
They flip the page, and again,
Start with tomatoes and dice them into small pieces.
there's different types of books by genres.
Then chop some onion to mix with the tomatoes. Some minced garlic adds even more flavor.
A lot of vocabulary that could be in here, a lot of translations for making
Now for the
recipes.
chopped jalapeno peppers. They are very spicy, so just a few will be enough.
So as you can see, it continues to read the book
Add
until
a
the
dash
end.
of salt and pepper.
And for sake of time, I won't go through the
Tear the
entire book.
cilantro into small pieces and add it too.
So when we return, they have several hundred books that can be read. Again, these are K-3 level books. So what are we doing for students who possibly would want to read something a little higher? If we go back to the site, well, let me go back to this site. We have Capstone, for instance. This is a K-12. Also, Mr. Messat it will read the books to them. So, for instance, they're pretty exciting books. This one they can read page by page or the entire book. So if I said page by page.
Firestormers, Backburn by Carl Bowen. North Cascades National Park. Established October 2nd, 1968. Coordinates 48 degrees, 49 minutes, 58 seconds north, 121 degrees, 20 minutes, 51 seconds. Map. Fire.
I'm just flipping
National
through the pages,
Forest.
but you
Chapter
get the idea
1.
that it's going to continue reading
The
everything.
air hung hot and heavy in North Cascades National Park.
It's highlighting
Just
the words.
breathing in the thick air was miserable, and the early morning sun had just peeked through the trees. Not that the sun would be a concern. A blotchy black and gray smear stained the sky for miles.
So again, I apologize for that. I meant to bring up another one. So those are two of the books, companies that we did find that actually have that available. But on top of that, and I apologize, I'm trying to get back to the site. On top of that, we have several software programs that we have used throughout the school year, but we can also use it throughout the year. Here's one that's a big-time favorite in elementary. It's Education Galaxy, and you'll see this one has different games. For instance, this one is a time. It is 9:28, 9:28. The students come in, they play it, it'll take them to the next one, which that's not doing. Let me go back. For some reason, I was logged out. Just take me a minute. I wanted to show you just a couple of others that students are able to do. When we talk about phonics, when we talk about different games that students could actually play, these are the ones that we want them to work on. Just take me 1 second. I do apologize for that. Reno did warn me that possibly I would lose internet. Again, they have Brain Pop. You've heard of Brain Pop before. We have Reading Eggs. I'll show you the Reading Eggs website, for instance. You would just come in and log in. It's not for students have to have their ID number. That's the part that makes this a safe site. I'm going to try this one. And there's different games that they can play. So if we looked here, you would see, for instance, phonics. And they would choose that. These are games that they actually play, and I shouldn't even say games. They're learning activities that the students have played in the classroom, so they're very familiar. What we'd like to do is promote them in the summer to all our parents to say, let's not lose any learning in the summer. If they're going to play, have them play these games because we know that they are all instructionally based. If I wanted to play this one, for instance, I guess I'm on game number 3. It loads it. They're all very engaging.
Letter I. 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 Iguana. I. I. Insect. I. 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 Iguana, an insect in a tree.
So that's something that we do with our kinder and first, with our reading eggs. You saw the Education Galaxy. We have vocabulary. You've heard of Odyssey where students can work to earn their credit recovery. It's a 24-hour platform. You'll see down here at the bottom, students do have access to it to work from home, accumulate their hours. You've also heard of the Khan Academy. I believe I even received an email today asking if we were going to partner up with them again. Again, Khan Academy is made up of hundreds of thousands of videos. So if I'm stuck on a particular math problem, I can literally go in, type it, and I'm going to get step-by-step help. We have, we did find a TA website, Mr. Miss, and I just want to point this out. However, what this one does is you actually go into it, and it just asks what grade level you're interested in. Down here at the bottom, you'll see that I'm looking for my current grade. 3rd grade, I want a book that's not too difficult, not too easy, but just right. Here, this site would be for a parent who's actually looking to purchase books, though. This isn't a free site for them just to hear the books, but if a parent who wants to build a library is actually looking, then TA has put this together. They would come in for their categories. They would click on them. For instance, if I wanted humor and games, and then what it does, it gives them an entire range of Amazon books and games. But it would also help a student to say to the librarian, do you have this in the library? So this is the platform we're trying to put together in the next couple of weeks. We'd like to build it strong, share it out with all our parents. We do have a one-sheeter that's a step-by-step that the coordinators are working on. And it, just the way I said, you go to the parents, and then you click on curriculum, and then you enter your email. Just like that, it's a step-by-step. So that's the plan of action, sir.
Great, thank you very much. And just to add a footnote to that, it's mytasb.org. They'll find a list of required books per grade level. And they have a
The required
parental,
books.
they can go in as a parent.
Thank you, sir. We will add
Yeah.
that too.
And they'll have bilingual books as well.
Thank you very much.
But most importantly, is the books that are recommended for them to read by grade level so they can be on target when they do take the test.
We'll definitely look into that one, and if we can add it to this platform.
great.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else want to comment? It's a wonderful tool. This is what,
I just want to add, it's a wonderful tool. You built the vocabulary, the students are able to listen. If the parent can't read to them, there is something there that is being read to the student, building up their vocabulary and their interest in language and books. So, yeah, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
a lot of parents don't have the help of phonics. They don't know how to teach phonics, and so it's a great start for
Yes,
them to
sir.
have the resource.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next report that we have is item 8B, Library Book Titles Update. Ida Gomez.
Mr. Mesa?
Yes.
We've been working with his district's head librarian to put together a presentation regarding the book titles and the different concerns that have been shared, and put together a plan of action. So Ms. Gurley will be presenting, and then if there's any questions, I'll try to answer it.
Great. Ms. Jackie was one of my teachers.
You can just go like that.
Welcome.
Surprise! I'm stepping in. What an honor, Dr. Rios, Mr. Mesa, school board, to be in front of you and to be allowed to do this. This is very meaningful to me. This is really neat. First time presenter, long time viewer, watching you guys on TV, so please just bear with me, as this is, again, my first time. We've been talking about the library titles and want to give you an update of what's going on with our district, with what's happening with the state. I think she said just turn it down. There we go. So it's important that we start at the beginning. I'd like to give you some legislative background of what has been happening. Back in October of 2021, Matt Krause, who is a representative from Fort Worth, is also the head, he's the chairman of the investigative committee for the state. He sent out a letter to some school districts and to TEA asking about some information of about 850 titles that were on his list. He wanted to know three main things. Do you have them in your collection? How many copies of these books do you have? And how much funding did you spend on these? Our district was not part of the group that he sent it out to. Even though our district was not part of the group that sent it out, that got it, we were very proactive about it. We know that there are about, 1,200 districts in the state. 51 responded of the ones that he sent. We went through the list and looked at our collection as a whole in the district. Out of 850 titles, we have 150, about 18% of his list. The dates, it goes back to 1969, and it's very interesting. There's all sorts of books on there. Governor Abbott took Mr. Krause's concern. He asked TEA, TASB, and the State Board of Education to follow up with this. Last week, TEA released a letter, it was done on April 11th, stating that they have some model policies for school districts to follow if they do not already have a policy in place, if they wanted to update their policy, just so that they can look at it. There is the letter. I believe you guys all have a copy of it. I'm not going to read it, but it is there. Now, currently, we have board policy. It's EF legal. I'm not going to read you the policy, but it is in place. This policy has been utilized in the district, and it's been very successful. We had a concern come up last week about a book. It was titled, I want to make sure I tell you the title correctly in case you look it up. It is You Brought Me the Ocean. It was a title at the middle school. The concern was brought to the librarian. The librarian and the principal discussed it. The principal reached out to me. I looked at the book. The book is for 9th through 12th grade. So the book was at the middle school. What we decided to do is just we need to move it to the appropriate age group, which would be the high school with me. So it was very successful, a quick response. Now, because there are no legal requirements about the policy to drafting the policy, we have options, which is always a great thing to have options. In January of 2023, legislation is going to meet. They could come up with a policy that they want us all to follow. So we can wait to see if they do that. But again, that's January 2023. We can work with TASB to create a policy for us, a local policy, in the meantime, if we want to, using the model that TEA has provided. Or we can establish a local committee and all get together and decide locally how we would like to, what our policy would look like. And here's what we're doing immediately, currently. We're reviewing grade appropriate titles, constantly looking at all of those, making sure they're at the correct campus they need to be. We're relocating titles like we did last week with that book from the middle school to the high school. We're removing titles that are deemed adults. Now, how they get a deemed adult is by publishers. They decide whether they're adult or not, and if a book has come into the district that is adult, we're going to remove it, which goes back to our board policy where it states we can do that. And then we're establishing protocols on how to purchase books for the future. Does anybody have any questions?
Yes. Normally, my understanding is we handle library books if there's a question about a library book on a case-by-case basis. And I haven't heard any since forever. There used to be a question about Judy Blume way back then in the 70s.
Yes.
But it was, just language that wasn't, it may be inappropriate, but it was kind of used throughout the book, which wasn't, that really bad. It was a very popular author, Judy Blume, but usually was brought up to the principal's attention and either set up a committee of parents, teachers, and then they would decide whether that book was going to be deleted from the rest of the books in the library and so forth. But I just wanted to make sure that, just wanted to know, I'm glad that we only had 18% and not 850 of them. So that's good to know. But I think it's just set something in place that we do need to be very careful about purchasing books in the near future that might be inappropriate for our students, whether through being that they're not of grade level or that inappropriate language, whatever it might be. But I appreciate the fact that this report is being done, and again, there is a new policy that is recommended, but it's just recommended at this point, correct, Dr. Lewis?
Yes, sir, that is correct. However, we would like to hear from yourself and other board members of the options. Would you want us to put together a committee of parents to review even the model policy that TASB is going to recommend to decide how we go forward? Or do we just follow the same process we have in the past and bring that policy before the policy committee? Because come this summer, we will have to do something. They are going to provide for us a sample policy, and you don't have to adopt a local policy, but we usually do respond to those opportunities.
I'll ask the board. Observe vote.
I say we keep the existing one in place until the legislature makes up its mind there, because, like you said, that'll be June or July, pending no special sessions. So I see no reason to change anything right now.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Mr. Contreras?
I'm with Josh, just keep the way it is now. However, I do have a question. What makes, I guess, the book inappropriate? Is it because it's not in the age group or the language? Or is it the content of the book that usually brings it out and causes the attention? I don't know if you're able to discuss that or not.
We can. There isn't any one set of rules that would make the book inappropriate. Inappropriate is in the mind of the person or people or majority of people that deem the book as not adequate for their own children to read. So because there isn't a check mark box that we can say, does the book pass all of these tests, we usually follow the grade level appropriateness deemed by the publisher. But from time to time, and it really doesn't happen even every year. I think in the last 9 years, I can probably remember 3 times that it's happened. A parent or a teacher will bring a book to our attention to review the content. In those times, we followed the policy that is up there that she reviewed in a bit. But there is no check mark box that we can just say, this is good, this is not appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I
Mr. Smith?
would support retaining our current policy until needed.
Great.
Me too.
Great.
I think the way it is right now.
Okay, thank you. So we'll just keep the one we have and just wait and see what else occurs. Okay, thank you very much for the report. Appreciate
Thank
it.
y'all. Thank you.
Next item, next report we have is item 8C. Provide updates for the San Felipe de Oro CISD Health Insurance Fund. Ade Garcia and
Yes, good
Brown-
evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. Tonight, we have Greg Coldaway from Brown & Brown, who will provide us with an update of our health insurance for this last quarter.
welcome, sir.
Good evening, Dr. Rios and board. We've been talking in this venue for at least a year, probably about some necessary, or at least we felt some necessary changes to the health plan. And we have finally gotten to that point. We've implemented those changes, and we're 1 quarter into our plan year. So this graph shows why we felt like those changes were necessary. It's this upward trend of cost through 2021. And then the last data point on this chart is where we are in the first quarter. So what this shows us is the changes we're making have had the effect that we had hoped. So we're well on our way. We're very early in the year, obviously, but we're trending in the right direction. And as you recall, these were the basic ideas that we had hoped to implement. One is value-based pricing, which is really a different method of paying hospitals primarily. One of those solutions was we implemented a direct contract with your local hospital. So the school district and the hospital signed a contract together about what their fees and charges would be, which was much more favorable to the district and to their employees than we had under the Aetna plan. We have a more favorable contract with hospitals in San Antonio. We pay other providers who are not part of our network under a reference-based pricing model, and you'll remember those discussions where it simply says we're going to use Medicare as a reference point to pay those providers and then pay them, in this case, 160% of what Medicare would otherwise pay. So all of that is what we call value-based pricing. Cash pay providers are those providers who just simply don't take insurance, but are high-quality providers with extraordinarily good pricing. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples of how that has worked out to your employees' benefit already so far this year. The direct contracts, as we already suggested, is the one we have with Val Verde Regional and all the physicians that work for them. And then a transparent PBM, again, is a refresher, is a pharmacy benefit manager. That's the middleman between the pharmacy and the manufacturer, and we all use them, but in our opinion, the traditional pharmacy benefit managers simply cost too much and didn't have any of our interest at heart. So what arose from that was pharmacy benefit managers that really worked with us to help lower the cost of the drugs that we're purchasing. So those were the four big things that we tried to accomplish. And in order to do that, we had to take a different approach. We had to get rid of an insurance company because they're really don't have our interest in mind. And we hired an independent third-party administrator. In this case, we'll go over who all those are, but in this case, it was a group called Kempton Group. We have better network contracts with most hospitals. We have a direct contract with Valverde Regional here in Del Rio. We have a really good direct contract with Shannon Medical Center in San Angelo as well. And then for all those providers who are not part of any of these networks, we simply pay them on a reference-based pricing model. And then we're doing the transparent pharmacy benefit manager and specialty programs, which are ways to utilize dollars that are out there to lower the cost of the most expensive drugs. So that's working as well. So what this shows you is some of the changes we made from a vendor standpoint. In 2021, we basically used Aetna for everything. Aetna was bundled all together. CVS Caremark was the PBM, and they actually own Aetna, so it literally was all one company. By breaking all that apart, we were able to get best-in-class services for each of those components. So our third-party administrator is now the Kempton Group. Our stop-loss carrier is US Fire. We have multiple network ideas, with Healthcare Highways is kind of our major network. We have direct contracts. We have reference-based pricing. We have a program we call Kpp Free, which I'll talk a bit more about. And then Southern Scripts is our PBM. So we took a very cohesive, simple contract with Aetna, and we just broke it all apart to get the best vendors for each one of these various services and put them all together. So as you might expect, this is not without its challenges. There have been instances where your folks wanted to go to providers outside of our network. There's been a handful of times where those physicians just didn't want to deal with us, unwilling to bill our plan. So we worked very hard on those instances. Your team has done an amazing job working with us on that. We've literally made visits to doctors' offices in San Antonio. My team has done that to help them understand that the payment is fair and it's reasonable, and to try to get those physicians on board with what we're trying to do. We had one instance where Baptist Hospital in San Antonio simply refused to perform a particular procedure without a large upfront payment. That was easily resolved. This employee's physician simply switched her over to Methodist Hospital. They got the procedure performed, and all is well. We have one instance that I'm aware of, an employee that needs to go to MD Anderson Hospital. We've, within 48 hours, signed an agreement with MD Anderson to see that patient and take care of them. So what that may tell you is that this is a much more personal, individual type of arrangement, where we take an employee's needs, we do what we need to do to solve their individual problems. So like in this case with MD Anderson, we want that employee to go get the very best care available, so we'll make an agreement and make that happen for them. So Pharmacy has been less of an issue, but anytime you change from one pharmacy benefit manager to another, the formulary or the list of drugs is not going to match up exactly. So there's always some challenges to work through with that. Pre-authorizations, which is certain high-cost drugs require pre-authorization. And you may have had an employee that had done that process with Aetna and is still taking that drug and had to restart that process. And that's just common to changing a carrier or changing a pharmacy benefit manager. And those issues will certainly work out over time. We're not hearing much about that at this point. So I'm reminded of Thomas Sowell, who said there's no solutions, only trade-offs, right? So this is one of the trade-offs to getting away from a major insurance company, and that is it creates a little bit of angst and a little bit of challenge for a few folks. The trade-off is that the financial results are proving to be what we thought. And what we track is per employee per month cost. So we take all the costs, break it down on a per employee per month, and that allows us to see how we're performing over time. And so if you look at the fourth column, which shows the total cost for 2020, we were at $687.37 per employee per month cost. 2021, that escalated to $889. And so far, in our first quarter, we're down to $635. So that's a 28.5% decrease over last year. So again, we are in the first quarter. This is very early, but we're very pleased with the trajectory of where we're headed from a cost standpoint. So this is the trade-off that we're making to get these financial results. And so just to give you a little bit more update, our large claims over 75,000, this is not all of the claims over 75,000, it's only the top 10, but just note that in 2021, we had $2.6 million spent on just the top 10 claimants. That drives a lot of costs. So far, first quarter, we have none, which is a good sign, but we don't expect that to continue throughout the year. Plan funding. So we've been talking about the cost of the plan. The revenue side of the plan is all the dollars that the district contributes into. It's our pot of money to pay claims and pay costs for the health plan. So that is a combination of what the district funds and what the employees themselves fund into the pot from their payroll deductions for their families and their children and so on. So in 2020, we spent $855,000 more than that fund had been funded. 2021, it was underfunded by $2.5 million. So these dollars are coming from somewhere, and they're coming from a variety of sources, but all of it is your money. And so again, that is prima facie of why we felt like we had to make a change in the structure and how the plan works. So far, first quarter, we're up with a $698,000 surplus. So again, pleased with the financial results from a district standpoint, but also pleased with the results to your employees. Because our goal in doing this was not just to say, hey, we can save money from a district standpoint. It was also important to us to impact at the employee level. And so just as a reminder, the contract that we signed with Valverde Regional said that they're going to give us certain pricing that's very favorable to us. In exchange for that, we will pay their claims at 100% with no employee responsibility. Meaning they don't have a deductible, they don't have 20%, they don't have a copay when they go to Valverde Regional. And the trade-off on that is, obviously that cost our plan a little bit of money, but it makes the hospital willing to give us a better deal because they get out of the collections business, right? They're no longer chasing dollars from your employees, and that's very advantageous to them. So it doesn't cost your employees a single penny when they go to Valverde Regional Hospital or the physicians that are associated there. So far, in the first quarter, we've had 317 of your employees who have had some service there that they got that cost them $0 out of their pocket, that last year they would have had a deductible, they would have had co-pays, they would have had out-of-pocket costs for those visits. The other component we have is what we call the Kpp Free Program, and that is the program that encapsulates those cash pay providers that we talked about. And you may recall we talked about a surgical center in Austin, one in Oklahoma City. We talked about imaging centers. We talked about durable medical equipment, those types of things that we can source at much lower cost. And when that employee chooses to go that direction, we waive all copay, all costs to them. So far, in our first quarter, we've had 22 different folks take advantage of that with net savings to the district of around $23,000. And what we typically see is that program tends to grow over time because as employees talk about the experience they had, the ability to to provide or receive those services at no cost, that tends to build on itself. So it's a good start. But again, that's 22 more folks who receive services that would have otherwise had cost out of pocket. And just big picture on the pharmacy side, because we did make some changes there as well, there's been 808,489 prescriptions filled in the first quarter. Total member responsibility, meaning all the copays added together, was just under $15,000, which averages out to about $1.74 per prescription. That's really low. So we've lowered overall costs to the district, but we've also made significant impacts to your employees' bottom line and their family budgets as well. And I don't know if you can read this. This is an actual explanation of benefits from an employee at your district who chose to have a surgery at Texas Free Market Surgery in Austin. That surgery there cost $12,500. It would have been a minimum of $20,000 anywhere else. And if that person had chosen the other option, they would have had at least $4,600 out of their pocket for that procedure. In this instance, because they made that choice to drive to Austin to get this procedure, they have zero out of pocket, zero deductible. So, and that's an employee choice. They make that choice or they choose something else, but the dollars that are available to them to save are significant. This is another one. This was not a surgery. This is just an insulin pump that somebody needed that we were able to source at a really good price. Consequently, we gave it to them. You gave it to them at no cost. That, under normal circumstances, would have cost them about $1,240 out of their pocket. So these are just two examples just to put a face on what this is, because we can talk in very high language, but these are real people that work for your district that have significantly more money in their bank account today because of the programs that we've implemented. So that's what I had for you this evening. I'm open to any questions you may have.
Yeah, Mr. Holloway, we really appreciate you coming and giving us an update. We do have questions. I'll start with Mr. Smith.
Yeah, thank you
Yes, sir.
for the update. A couple of math questions, just because I like math. On slide 1, where you talk, and I appreciate the normalization on this, but if you've got, if my memory tells me right, where our higher occurrence of claims occurs is during those summer months. And so I'm thinking this may be too early to celebrate just because of the time of
That's
year.
possible. A counterpoint to that is that the majority of the claims that were paid in January were claims paid by Aetna that were incurred earlier. So
Okay.
we were not getting the advantage of the pricing and the things that we're doing now really for the cost in January. So effectively, we have 2 months of the new program. So your point is well taken, sir. It's really early, but I think the results are actually, at this point, better than they reflect here because of that reason.
Okay. And then trying to connect that $635.99 per employee per month number, trying to connect that to, what is this, slide 9? And that 700K, is this 700K worth of surplus? Is that
Yes,
what
sir.
you're saying? Okay.
Contributions exceeding our outlays.
Okay, and so essentially, we've got somewhere around $2.7 million worth of year-to-date cost, or am I doing the math wrong?
I have that information. I don't know that I put it in here, but I can get that information for you.
No worries, I'm just trying to capture this. And last year, we had a debt of 2.5, and you're saying we got a surplus of 7, right? And, okay, all right, I guess that's all I've got. Just trying to get my brain around it.
Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I just want to comment on a couple of things. First of all, I appreciate the negotiation with Valverde Regional. And I guess out of the top 3 items that we're always concerned with as board members is, instruction, salaries, insurance. And every time that there's a change, we get to hear from all the employees. I just want to ask, because I know the last time you were here, I asked if there's anyone that is paying cash and trying to get reimbursed. We wanted to get someone from the district to assist that person in calling. Do we have people that were reimbursed for paying?
Yes, sir. That's happened a few times. I don't know exactly how many, but I know that it has happened where a person just paid cash for their visit and they get reimbursed fairly quickly for that. So that is an option when a physician chooses for whatever reason not to cooperate with us. That's always an option. The employee could choose to do that as well.
Okay. And I'm glad to see that we're trending in the right direction, although it's the first quarter. I know that this is something that we always bring up, that sooner or later, because of rising costs everywhere, it just seems to be a benefit that we're providing 100% for our employees. And,
Yes, sir.
and I always say this because I know that in the future it will be coming where an employee might have to pay part of their premiums for insurance because of the high cost. But right now, I'm glad that it's trending in the right direction. We've made some savings, and again, thanks to Brown and Brown for making those changes. And sometimes it's a big problem for employees that are having some surgical procedure done, and right in the middle they change carriers, and
Always a
it's
challenge.
difficult.
Mr. Mesa, I would suggest that Dr. Rios and his team, to do what we did takes a lot of courage on their part, because it's easy just to keep doing what you're doing and explain that medical costs just keep going up. But they had the courage to step out and try something different to change that trajectory. And so they are to be commended as well.
Yes, and I know that this is something that when I attend some of the conferences that I go to, I tell the people there that we're providing 100% of the insurance, and the majority do not. I mean,
Yes,
it just is difficult for them, but we're able to do this, and I'm glad that we are able to do this. I'll pass it on to anybody else. Any questions? Ms. Wood?
I just want to recognize Ray Garcia, because I know that, thank you Thank you very much, because I know that several employees have reached out to me for different situations. And she has done a wonderful job working with them and either getting with the group to figure things out for them. And at the end of the day, they all come back and say, thank you. Their answers were answered. The physician that was not on there is on there. So thank you, Ray, for what you're doing to work with all the employees at their level and individually, I guess is the correct word to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Webb. Anyone else?
I do.
Okay, Ms. Orfeld.
Someone has to be the mean guy. I have some questions for you and comments to certain comments that you've made there. Because it's no surprise that I've not been happy with this since day one. So I've got some questions. What is the ER copay for healthcare highways?
It's $400 at, I believe, anywhere other than the hospital locally.
Okay, so I can go to Val Verde Regional Medical Center and not do a copay and sit around for hours waiting to be seen, or I can go to STAT where I've got to fork up $400-something, where prior to January 1, STAT wrote everything off. There was no copay that had to be done there, and STAT's a hell of a lot faster than Val Verde Regional Medical there. So how do I go back and tell the employees who have called me freaking out about that because it's $400 that I've got to pay up front, they're all of a sudden that, well, you can go sit in the ER for hours, Val Verde Regional Medical Center, and I don't think there's anyone in here who can tell me that's not the truth of what goes on at this place, because I've lived it several times. So how do we justify a $400 copay for a standalone ER that's providing the same stuff? That's one question, and you can answer that, and then I'll go on to my others.
Well, $400 copay for ER is very, very normal.
I'm with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I don't pay anything when I go there.
I can't speak to your specific plan, but I would say that $400 is very, very common and on the low end of what we see. So the other thing I would add is that while STAT, it is the conundrum that they are convenient, it's a very nice place to go, it is significantly more expensive.
I've been admitted to STAT for, spent 2 nights in their ER and not a bill.
Not to you.
Well, they write everything off, so why is our district or this particular insurance suddenly different?
I can't speak to that, sir.
Okay, moving on.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, I just want to clarify one thing. We met with STAT. Colway drove from San Antonio, and we met with STAT because we want to look at every opportunity to provide our employees all benefits. STAT wrote the co-pays off for the last few months, year, but they're no longer going to be writing that off at all. Now, they did it for different reasons, but they're not going to be able to continue to do that. We visited with STAT, and we offered them the opportunity to provide us a plan that we could then negotiate from. But it's up to them to be willing to provide us what the hospital has provided us. I understand the difference between STAT and a regular hospital, but as a person that kind of drives this, I also understand that, you know, we were in the hole last year for $2.8 million.
It was
or
also
longer.
a COVID year. We were getting dinged for every single COVID test.
No, sir. It wasn't just COVID that drove the cost up. So we have to find a way to be solvent, to be able to provide health care across the whole district. Now, we encourage STAT to give us a recommendation that we can negotiate from, and I hope that they do so that we can have that discussion.
So on that, because it's coming down to financials, there is was it, you know, you mentioned earlier, sir, about, you know, there's always a trade-off there, and financial for this, or the financial being of the district for the healthcare of the and well-being of our employees. And I think the trade-off is way too few. And you mentioned there about those different medical providers in town that chose not to cooperate. There, why would they choose not to cooperate with this particular group?
It's really difficult to understand their motivations, but some just choose not to engage with anything that's not what they know, which is Aetna, United Healthcare, Blue Cross, those kind of providers.
So on that, I've had multiple employees tell me, and I've ran into it personally because my wife is employed with the district, where one of her specialists called up and said, "Did you change insurance? Because we're supposed to see you on this." "Yes, it went to this." "What is that?" That's the most common question that happened at the rollout was, "What is that? We've never heard of that." And then they went in and researched it and said, "We're not going to take it. Sorry." So now I've got to go and we have to go find another specialist for all of that. And what happens is while we're saving money, we're creating this huge mental anguish amongst our employees while all of this is going on. You know, it impacted us in more than one way. I will grant you that. Where's Connect DME located?
I don't know where they're physically located.
Okay, it's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So on that thing that you showed about where they saved $1,200 something, was that for a medical procedure or was that for pharmacy stuff?
That was a medical device. I believe it was
medical
an
device?
insulin pump. Yes.
Okay. Also, the pharmacy stuff. I've heard multiple stories, and like Mr. Mesa said earlier, we hear it, and there are those who are going to tell us because they're not going to come here and tell us in here because there's a fear of it. So some of us have to go in and be that voice for them, and that's what I'm going to go in and do. I've heard all sorts of stories about allergy medicines and different things like that being denied by this new carrier. I know of one individual that had to be airlifted to San Antonio because of COVID complications, got over there, and then the hospital was like, "We need to give you this life-saving medicine," and the insurance company was like, "Nope." And it became a battle to get them to sign off on it, and thank God they finally signed off on it. But if I'm lying there in the bed, knocking on death's door, why should my spouse have to call a damn 1-800 number to go in and get it approved? I don't understand that. It was so much easier under Aetna before that. And I've come to the realization, and this is my own personal opinion, that we were sold a bill of goods that is not living up to what it was supposed to be, and I want to know when the RFQ process can begin again.
Dr. Rios?
There are some employees that do have to go through some changes. That doesn't have to happen. You know, when we discussed the insurance and how much money the district was investing on it, we can stay down that path that we were before. But what we attempted to do was to find a way to not pass the expense on to the employee, because for how many years have we been talking about having the employees participate in contributing to the health insurance? it comes out to approximately $2,000 per employee per year. So we can work through these changes and readjust to a change and hopefully make up the money in the way we're going, or we can go back to how we did things before, but then it's going to cost every employee, whether you're the one that uses some of these procedures or not, about $2,000 a year. I understand the angst that we all go through. We all have, well, a lot of us have families, but those are the choices we're at. We can keep working the way we're going and be able to eventually resolve all the issues. It is going to take some change, or we can pass the cost of $2,000 a year per employee to stay solvent. Other districts pass a cost on to the employees, and it's not a superintendent decision. It's not a Brown and Brown decision. It's a team of 8 decision. I understand it's difficult, but the bottom line is we have to decide, do we keep looking for these new changes, or do we have every employee contribute approximately $2,000 a year for these costs? It isn't going to make a difference whether it's Brown that's leading this or any other group, because at the end of the day, we're a self-funded insurance. There's no other district, there's absolutely no other district that does 100% insurance funding and has the luxury and convenience of not being in long wait lines or not going through angst and dealing with different providers. It's just a team of 8 decision, but it is going to cost $2,000 per employee per year to go back to the way we were. It's not a superintendent decision. It's a board decision.
Mr. Rios,
Right, and that was-
one question for you, related for clarity.
Mr. Smith,
Not clarity,
yes.
yeah. I was thinking that number was 1,400. I'm just trying to get my brain corrected. When we had this conversation, I thought it was 1,400 per employee.
No, sir. We suggested a starting point,
Okay.
and we had talked about anywhere from $50 to $60 per pay period per employee.
Okay.
But that was just a starting point to
All right, I'm just trying to square my memory. I'm just
Yes, sir.
trying to make, okay.
Yeah.
So you're
Mr.
saying
Roof?
it's not 1,400, it's 2,000 employee.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Refault?
Let me be very clear. I agree with the idea of trying to keep it free for our employee, or the self-funded like we've been doing. But when we took this on, it was explained to us, it was presented to us that all these carriers and medical professionals in Del Rio would go in and take it. Everyone's going to take it. I can bring the video back up if we need to. Right? And then we get into it and, oh, it's not. What I'm trying to get across is we were promised one thing and it has turned into something entirely different. I will take ownership that I absolutely voted for this because I believe it was a 7-0 vote when we did it. And there, because it sounded great. But like I said earlier, my own personal thing is I regret it now. Because it has become a huge mess that has put undue stress at a time in our country, in our history, when we don't need all this extra stress added. And I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Orfeld. I just want to say that I've been approached by one employee, and she said, I'll pay mine. And I said, you can pay yours, but hourly wage is not going to be able to pay that amount of, for the insurance. So it's a difficult thing. But again, you're providing us information here. I thank you again for the update. Anyone else had a question? I think we're done. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Next report that we have is item 8D, Weaver Technology Integrated Data Protection Update. Mr. Salinas, Manuel Salinas.
Mr. Mesa, Mr. Carrera is going to make the presentation. Mr. Salinas is available to help us answer some of the more technical questions if there are any.
Okay.
Good evening, Board President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. So this is an update to the cybersecurity malware incident response. For our presentation tonight, our agenda will be as follows: the Disaster Recovery and Incident Response Plan, Active Directory Security Assessment and Remediation, the Security Solutions Training, and the Master Service Agreement Proactive Support. Each of these bullets will present purpose, goals, and update. Starting with the Disaster Recovery Incident Recovery Plan, the purpose of the professional service is to develop an incident response for key disruptions in services. Some of those disruptions are power outages, security compromises, and reduction in continuity services. Our goals are: 1, to develop a disaster recovery incident response plan, and 2, to produce a playbook for protocols and responses to outages and interruptions. Update is the incident response plan development has been initiated. The San Felipe Del Rio technology team has meetings set up this week with the Weaver Technologies to start the discovery process. Next is the Active Directory Security Assessment and Remediation, which will provide a complete security assessment and the development of a set of remediation objectives. Goals are to develop 40-mail remediation, which consists of a scanner that checks for spam email, an Active Directory Assessment and Remediation, which houses our information, and a multi-form authentication, which is simply a multi-facet of identification. Update: discovery or active discovery audit is complete, and a report will be provided to San Felipe Del Rio. We are still pending work from Weaver Technologies on 40-mail remediation and multi-form authentication. Third is the Security Solutions Training. This training, which will be provided by Weaver Technologies, will train the technology personnel on key infrastructure components. Goals is to receive from Weaver Technologies a 2-day training on Integrated Data Protection Appliance, IDPA, Backup Vault, a 2-day training on VMware Carbon Black, there was 2 of these, and then a 1-day training on email, firewall, and patching. Update: day 1 of IDPA and VMware Carbon Black ESXi VxRail, that training has been completed. The day 2 of IDPA and VMware Carbon Black Horizon VxRail is pending. And then we are also pending training on firewall, patching, and 40-mail. Finally, the Master Service Agreement provides the district with the continuous technology health checks and status reports each month for the next 12 months. The goals are: 1, to identify all systems requiring health checks and establishing timelines for completion. 2, identifying individuals responsible for management and oversight of district technology infrastructure. And 3, to perform monthly health checks. Update: we initiated this process in November 2021, and we are obtaining monthly reports to identify issues needing remediation. In summary, through the district's effort, the technology infrastructure has been strengthened and secured. to a level well prepared in the event of future cyber attacks and/or ransomware attacks. The community can rest assured that the district has taken great measures to secure information for all stakeholders. Are there any questions?
Mr. Smith?
So, on these monthly health checks, you say we've identified and remedied issues. Do you got any examples, just for?
Excuse me. Yeah, we had a couple of servers that had vulnerabilities, missing patches and stuff like that. They've been patched up and cleared up, so those servers are up to date and don't have any vulnerabilities for attackers to get in. So.
Okay. That's all I've got.
Anyone else? I have one. I know before we were having issues with backup on a daily basis.
Yes.
If there's someone that, for example, I just want to make sure that we have cross-training going on if someone is not here to be able to do that function.
Yes, we are doing that with the trainings. So we're having all of our network admins trained on that. So we don't have just one person, having that access. So we are getting everybody trained on that.
Okay. And then my other question has to do with emails. I know that you mentioned the training, 1-day and 2-day training. But is this for our personnel to be able to detect some bogus email that could have very easily been detected either because of misspelled words or, what have we encountered before?
Right. Well, on the one that we have here for this from Weaver, the Florida Mail, that is our protection for spam that comes in. Now we do have we do have other trainings that do help with the detection of spam and that kind of stuff, which is another security training that we have on a yearly basis for employees so they can have that knowledge.
So they will be going through some training then?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else?
I got one more question,
Yes,
real
Mr.
quick,
Smith.
and that's related to training. So, thank you for bringing that up. You've got, this is for every employee on this email training, or is it just?
There's two of them. Like I said, the one right here is for my staff, and then we have one that's on a yearly basis for all of our employees. So that's Security IQ. So that does the training for what to detect as spam or kind of what's it called? Those kind of interests or things like that.
All right, though, in that all employee training, that's pending, or is it complete?
That's on a yearly basis, so we give it out at the beginning of the school years to do that training.
Okay, and does this include any like continuous stuff that goes on through the year that just shows up in somebody's account and it says, hey, they pull it up and either they go through the training or they pull it up and it's like, dude, you just screwed up, you shouldn't open this thing.
Yeah, that program does offer it, but I don't think we have actually turned on the campaign to, do that kind of testing on staff members. So, but we can do that if we need to.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful one is the point that I'm trying to make because, you go through the routine of your stuff and you get, you train, but then go back and test the validity of that with the employees, I think is a critical piece. So.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Salinas, I have one, and again, in regard to payroll, for example, that we were sent invoices, and I've always said this, that they can see who our vendors are. Electronically, they can look at the agenda that we have and see some of the vendors, and then they'll send which has happened in the past, but especially for payroll people that pay invoices and things of that sort, it's crucial that they go through that training of detecting emails that have signs of being a bogus email.
Yes.
Especially when they ask you to change the bank routing number and bank account number because of whatever. Those are very easily to, detect, but it has to be done anyway. To make sure that every employee that is in charge of paying bills that we incur throughout the year will be able to detect that.
Okay.
Mr. Contreras has a question.
Sir.
I'm glad to hear that we have employee trainings But what about student trainings that have access to our computers and our systems? Do we provide any type of trainings for these students? I mean, we have students that can probably take one of you to schools. I mean, we have kids out there that very, very knowledgeable, and they're on the web day and night. They come into our system. Do we have anything for them?
Not sure. I'm not sure right now, but I know I can find something out there if they do have that same kind of training. But I'll have to look that up.
Especially kids in middle school, when they start, gaining access into our systems, our laptops and stuff.
Yeah,
What do we provide for them? Because at the end of the day, they can download easily, something into our system.
Yes, sir.
Those are the students we need to employ.
Yeah.
First.
That's for sure.
No, honestly, I just want to tell you of a program that is being provided in San Antonio. They do have cybersecurity as one of the courses in high school, and it's awesome because the way they qualify their students is if they've broken into the grading system, you're in.
Correct.
Because they have abilities above and beyond some of the other students. But I don't want to teach those students about hacking into things. But I think the training that I would like is for employees, not so much for students. Not that I disagree with you, but I think that would be, for a cybersecurity class that hopefully in the future we can have. Dr. Rios?
A couple of points, Mr. Mesa. First, to the question that was asked by Mr. Smith in terms of the wellness checks. Just as a reminder, Weaver Technologies is helping us this year, but we did have a list of these wellness checks. For example, is data being backed up to the vault? Is that working? Because the last time that we had this issue, it wasn't working since the freeze.
Correct.
And then the question was suggested, well, how much will Weaver Technologies charge us just to do those health checks for us moving forward to make sure that it was being done? So that is in the works, and I believe it was right around $32,000, maybe it was the max. So that's part of that, and we're definitely going to explore that as we round out the year and see if we put it on the budget for next year. To the point that Mr. Contreras was making about students, we don't have per se a training for students, a curriculum. However, we have been talking about integrating it in some of the required courses that our students are taking. For example, we're one of the few districts that requires a CTE course as part of the graduation plan, business communication, BIM. So we can definitely look and have been talking about possibly integrating just some type of training in that course because we know everybody has to take it. And then we can certainly look at a 7th grade course where we can integrate some of that. So we'll continue with that discussion. And as far as the employee training, we're always looking to make it better. And I think that Weaver will also help us in that development.
I just have one more question that I think is for Dr. Rios. Dr. Rios, just want to make sure that when we back up our systems, that it's separate and apart from this building and the connections with this building?
Absolutely. We have a system designed to where everything's backed up into a vault, multiple levels, but absolutely.
So in case that we get ransomware or something, we are able to reinstall everything back in
Yes, sir.
short time?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I don't want to put you on the spot, Mr. Salinas, but I'm saying that if we get hacked, we get ransomware or malware, there's really no reason why we shouldn't have the system up and running within 12 hours.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, we can have all up 12 hours with the backup system. So
I just want to make sure because
yeah, it's solid this time. So
it will continue happening. I mean, it's
Yes.
they're just out there.
correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I guess we're okay. We're good. Thank you. Next item we have is report 8E, facilities and construction update. Israel Carrera.
Good evening again, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. So I have facilities and construction update for this month. The facilities that we'll be reviewing tonight would be the Del Ro Freshman Campus Life Skills Renovation, the Ceniza Hills Elementary Project, and the roofing contract with the non-TPO and TPO. Before I get started, I'm going to let you know that what we've seen throughout all our projects for this month is we've had some delays on supplies and materials, some more than others, but as we go through this, we'll review those and I'll be ready to answer any questions you may have. Starting with the Life Skills Freshman Campus, the Life Skills renovation, they have started the framing. They're tentatively scheduled to finish that by the end of this week. We still are on schedule to complete the work by July 14th. They did have some delays in supplies materials, but they were able to get them. Oh, I'm sorry. Getting ahead of myself. They did get them on time, and now they're pushing to get back on schedule. The Ceniza Hills Elementary Campus, we have received some joists this past week and the week before, and they're being erected. As soon as they get here, they're starting to erect those, as you can see in this photo. We have received 2 trucks with the joists out of the 7 that we're actually anticipating to have before the end of the joist. This has really caused some delays. However, if you take a look at the next slide, this is a plan by the contractor and ourselves working together to make plans to make up for time that we have lost. And as you read the narrative, it pretty much just says that basically the plan is to have individual trades to follow immediately behind the next. And so prior to this happening, what we had was if the framing was going on, they would go in and finish all the framing, then the next trade would come in, such as electricity and plumbing, and they would come in and do their thing. But what they plan to do is to get some part of the framing done on one side and let the individuals of trades like the electric and the plumbing come right behind them as they go to the next phase of framing. And that's doing that, they said that we would have about 7 to 8 months to catch up with the plan that we had originally. Going to the next project is the Non-Tpo Roofing. Nothing has been started at Cardwell. Non-TPO, again, it's due to supplies and materials, haven't been able to get them. And other ones that we're waiting on TPO is the tile roof at San Felipe Memorial Middle School and the SPC tile roof also. The TPO roofing project, again, this is the SPC. They're still having delays to get the TPO material. Later in this meeting, in the board meeting, we're going to have a change order for something for this SPC pertaining to the TPO roofing here at SPC. That is all, and have any questions?
Questions, board members? No questions? You want to go on to the maintenance?
Their work orders? For maintenance department, for 30 day they were up 16. On the 60 day they were down 2, and the 90 day they were up 9 for a 94% completion rate. Technology department, they were down 111 for 30 day. They were up 3 for the 60 day and up 8 for the 90 day for a 99 completion rate. And last but not least, the transportation department, for 30 day they were down 26. For 60 day they were at 0, and at 90 day they were up 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. 6. Is there any questions?
Questions? Mr. Orfeld?
I'm sorry. It goes back to construction at the elementary. The main reason they're behind is because of supply issues on the structural steel, right? That's
Mainly
what's
the
caused
joist. Yes,
the
sir.
joist, right?
Yes,
Has
sir.
caused the delay, something completely out of their hands because of national.
Yes, sir. And we do have some others that I think Chapa had a meeting today that, there's a decision that we're having to make that really is going to set a precedent as we move forward. When we make this decision, then we'll need to be consistent with those things, and it's due to delays. And then price increasing, I think he said they were increasing, every 2 months? Every 2 months, it's like the price is going up.
Wow, okay.
Israel, is there going to be any delay with this rain that we had?
I don't believe so. I think they should be on target. One day, they're really doing the structural steel, the joists, and I think they'll be okay.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll go down there and make the next presentation.
Okay. Next report we have is item F, update on counseling personnel. Dr. Rios.
Good evening, board members. Tonight I want to talk about our counseling program. Over the past few years, we have been talking about ways of increasing the number of counselors available to our students, particularly at the high school level, but also at the secondary level, from 6th grade up, to help them keep track of their courses, making decisions about their 4-year plans, staying up with students that may be at risk of failing, and overall being able to provide counseling in any areas that the students have needed. So today I'm going to talk about our current assignments and some goals that we have, update y'all on our help grant with Region 15, and also propose a plan to increase our counselors. We're talking about this plan because this is trying to get ahead of the budget season and to hear any concerns from the board or questions you may have so that we can better prepare as we move into budget season. So first, what do we have? We have 23 counselors. Each elementary level has 1 counselor. There is a second counselor at the larger bilingual academies, primarily because there's a whole lot of LPACs that have to be done. There's 2 counselors per middle school grade level, that's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. 6 counselors at the high school, 2 at early college high school, 2 at blended academy, and 1 at SCLC. Now that's not to say that all these positions are filled, there are some vacancies. But this is what we have budgeted per campus. Our goal is to have all of the bilingual academies have a second counselor. So Ruben Chavita would be needing a counselor. We eventually want to add at least 3 more counselors at Del Rio High School, then 1 additional counselor at the freshman campus, and then add 1 counselor per middle school grade levels. We've been looking at job descriptions and seeing what else we can do to support the students throughout, and really how the job description of the counselors will look to provide increased student services. And we're excited about the possibilities, but we also have to have a plan to be able to fund the additional counselors. Now, what Ms. Garcia and Ms. Gomez have done in working with Region 15, they've been aggressive. The help grant was intended to increase the number of counselors that were certified. Through the help grant, the district has been able to certify 7 new counselors. All participants have passed their certification exams. 2 will graduate in May, and 5 will graduate in August. That means that all 7 of them will be ready for a full-time counselor assignment this coming year. There are 3 additional employees that will be going through the help grant for this coming year. They'll be doing their coursework, and then they'll have an internship the following year, much like these other 7 counselors have done. And then we also believe that there'll be an opportunity for one additional counselor 12 months from now. So here's our plan on increasing the counselors. What you see in the top row are the assignments as they're budgeted right now, and you can see that we have 4 vacancies at the elementary level. So we want to fill the 4 elementary vacancies with the help counselors. Now we have 7 of them, we have 4 vacancies. But then we want to fill the vacancy at SGLC and fill the 2 additional counselors. We eventually want to add 3, but we want to fill at least 2 this coming year. So that gives us 3 other counselor positions that we would post internally, and then those in turn would be filled by the last 3 of the 7 help counselors. In short, what we're presenting to you is a way of increasing 3 counselors this coming year, and then the following year, look to add the other counselors. Again, this does have budget implications, but for a long time, we've been talking about how to increase the number of counselors. Participating in the HELP grant has certainly helped us move in that direction. Are there any questions or concerns?
Board members? Anyone?
Yeah, I got
Mr. Smith?
a couple of questions. The how are you? What do you use as a method to determine the need? Right. I mean, is it number of students per day, per week, per counselor at hand, per camp? How are you determining that number?
Sure. So the biggest need is obvious. Well, it's not obvious, but to us it is. To us that do this job every day is increasing the graduation rate and looking at what's keeping our students from staying on track. It's almost that constant coaching that's needed for the students at risk. So then, to make progress, what we want to do is we want to reduce the number of students to counselor, the counselor to student ratio, and be able to carry out certain activities during the year. So for example, at other high schools, counselors, besides checking transcripts, they have two interviews with students every year to keep track of the progress that they're making towards that degree plan. That's aside from all other duties that they may have. We're not able to do that right now because of the amount of students allotted to each counselor, which is right around, I think, 450. Okay? So we'd like to reduce that ratio so that they can complete all these other activities that we believe help other high schools across the state have a higher graduation rate. Now, that's not everything that's going to fix it, but that's certainly a huge step in that direction. And then, of course, the other counseling that they would do in terms of linking them up with resources and having more follow-through on students that are in some sort of crisis.
Okay, so you've got your student going to the counselor, and then you got the counselor just saying, come in twice a year, and we're gonna review what you've got going on to assure that you're college or career ready or whatever.
Yes, sir, absolutely, at a minimum.
And the tracking tool for the counselor-motivated reviews, is that a tool that exists, or that's something that you're going to put together to track that those occurrences occur?
There's already tools that exist. Okay. Yes, sir.
All right, so it's telling you that there's a gap and we're not covering the need as efficiently as we should.
Yes, sir.
Sure. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Dr. Rios, the HELP grant just helps with the preparation and certification of these students, correct?
It does a couple of things, Mr. Mesa. First, it provides 25% of the salary of the person going through the program. And then, obviously, it facilitates the coursework. It's a huge system of support, not just financial, but otherwise.
So eventually, we will pick up their salary?
We already pay 75% of their salary, but yes, sir, we would pay the rest of it. Now, if we think about it, we have 7 people that are going through that program, but those 7 are going to fill 4 vacancies. So if anything, we'd be saving 75% of the salary we're paying because they're assuming a vacancy. So we've already transitioned into assuming that cost just because they're filling into vacancies that are already funded. The math that we did today, next year, even with the vacancies that we're filling, our increased costs would amount to 75% of one counselor because of the ones we're using to fill vacancies plus the 3 that we're adding.
Okay. Well, as a board, we've always asked for, counselors to assist students, but I guess my other question has to do with, are these administrative positions?
Counselors do fall under the administrative pay plan.
Okay. That's the only drawback, that sometimes we add administrative positions and then, we're top heavy. But by all means, I agree that counselors are needed, especially at the elementary and middle school. High school, by all means, it's just, we're always, benefiting, by having another counselor to assist with graduation plans or with our IEPs, and not IEPs, but at least accommodating students, for whatever needs they have for their educational plan. I just worry about that number of administrative positions added. That's all. Anyone else? Mrs. Wood?
Sir, what is the ratio of students per counselor? It used to be 1 counselor for 500 students. I don't know what the ratio is right now.
Let's go back to that, ma'am. I could give you a guesstimate right now. So for example, at the high school, we have 600 counselors, and we have approximately 1,800 students. Where's Cindy? 2,100, so 6 divided by 21, it's right around 375. I'm just guessing, 350, 375, somewhere in between.
That's it? Yeah. Anyone else? All right. Thank you very much. Okay, next item we have is the agenda, consent agenda. There's some minutes of public hearing and regular meeting, financial statements, there's some purchase orders, and then there's donations. And while you're looking over those items, if there's any one item that you would like to pull and have some more discussion or have a question on, you can do that. In the meantime, Ms. Gonzalez is going to read off the donations. I think she has only 4.
Pardon me? I don't know what I'm going to do in my spare time, but I'm used to having 20 of them. I only have 7 today. Okay, I'll read slow now. Maxi Energy Company, $500, Del Rio High School staff. Maxi Energy Company, $500, Buena Vista Elementary, 2nd grade cluster. Del Rio High School Football Booster Club, game footballs for game use, total value $1,800, Del Rio High School Ram football. Walmart, 500 pieces of school supplies, total value $530, North Heights Elementary. Banco Internacional de Alimentos, alcohol, wipes, and youth face mask, total estimated value $21,426.46 to Irene Cardwell Elementary. Banco Internacional de Food Bank, okay. Give bags, hand sanitizers, hand soap, and face mask, total value $1,226 to Irene Cardwell Elementary. Christina Alexander, on behalf of Fernando Gonzalez, 3 containers of drafting tools, total value $300, CTE Architectural Design Course.
Thank you very much. As always, again, we're grateful for the donations made either by organizations or individuals to help our students throughout the different programs that we have. And I'll ask board members if there's any questions on any item on the consent agenda. One action will approve all items. Is there a question, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, G1.
G1.
I'd like to ask a question about G1.
Consideration to approve a contract over $5,000 with Sandra Garza in the amount of $48,000 funding source, Title V, Rural and Low-Income School Grant for math curriculum, instructional support, and resources. Ida Gomez.
Is that a one-time need or a continuous reoccurring need year over year, or what's the?
It's a year-over-year need. That's our math curriculum. So we pair as a consultant every year for updating and providing the curriculum.
Okay, that answers my question. So I needed clarity on what the definition was, so I'm square. Yeah.
Any other questions on the consent agenda? There's some minutes, if there's any correction to the minutes, some purchase orders, we're okay with everything. With that being said, then, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion made by Ms. Gonzalez, is there a second? Mr. Orfeld, all those in agreement, please raise your hand. Motion carries unanimously with 6 votes. Going to administration. First item we have is 10A, consideration to approve the amended interlocal participation agreement, IPA, adopted by the Board of Trustees of the TASB Risk Management Fund. Amy Childress.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. The Interlocal Participation Agreement is the fundamental agreement of the TASB Risk Management Fund. The fund is a self-funded risk pool, and the IPA is the agreement through which fund members participate in the fund. The IPA sets out the basic terms, conditions, and requirements of fund membership. The IPA was last approved by the Fund Board in April 2012 and has not been modified since then. The fund reviews and updates its IPA at least once every 10 years or more frequently as needed. The most current amended IPA was approved by the TASB Risk Management Fund Board on November 12, 2021, and will become effective on May 1st, 2022. And it must be approved through a board action in order for us to continue with the fund.
Questions from board members? Hearing none. Recommendation, please.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve and authorize the superintendent to sign the amended interlocal participation agreement adopted by the Board of Trustees of the TASB Risk Management Fund.
Thank you. You've heard the recommendation from administration. I'll entertain a motion for approval. Motion made by Mr. Orfeld, seconded by Mr. Smith. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously with 6 votes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 10B, consideration to amend and ratify the order of election for the San Felipe Adero CISD School Board elections to be held on May 7th, 2022. Sandra Hernandez.
Good evening once again, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. The district has been made aware that the polling location that was originally scheduled for Precinct 40 on Election Day for Saturday, May 7th, 2022 is unavailable. Since then, the election clerk has met with the entities and to determine first a replacement for the location. She has also met with the Office of the Secretary of State to determine the course of action in order to change the site location. The location, one of the locations that was recommended was the City Hall, and the second location was the SPC. So in coordination with all of the entities, they agreed that the SFDR CISD Student Performance Center and Administration Building would be confirmed as a replacement location for voters and combined Precinct 40 and 41 which was going to be the community center. So that is going to be the change. In addition to that change, early voting on Monday, May the 2nd and Tuesday, May the 3rd has been extended. And those hours are now going to be from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And you have at your desk, at your dais location, you're going to have a copy of the amended flyer that indicates the change of the early voting times that include Monday, May the 2nd and Tuesday, May the 3rd from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then the second flyer indicates the polling location change for precincts 40 and 41 to be at the Student Performance Center and Administration Building here at 315 Griner Street. You also have a copy of a letter that was provided by the attorney, city attorney, and in which they agreed, the city agrees with the location of the Student Performance Center and Administration Building.
Any questions from board members? Recommendation, please.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the amendment and ratify the changes to the order of election for the school board elections to be held on May 7th, 2022, as presented.
Thank you. You've heard the recommendation from administration. Entertain a motion for approval. Motion made by Ms. Gonzalez, seconded by Mr. Orfeld. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously with 6 votes.
Thank you so much, and I'll remind the board that they will each need to sign the order of election, so we will need their signature. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Thank you. Item 10C, consideration to approve a memorandum of understanding, MOU, between the City of Del Rio and San Felipe Del Rio CISD for the development of a park to be located within Ceniza Hills Elementary School. Israel Carrera.
Mr. Mesa, I'll have Mr. Carrera read the recommendation in a little bit, but I just wanted to remind the board, this is the MOU that we've been trying to work out with the city to whereby they would pay for the walking track and set the swings and lighting at Ceniza Hills. And in turn, we would open the park up to be used by the community outside of school hours. And we would also open up the road that was going to be passing on the east side of the school district. The city, we proposed an MOU. The city recommended some small changes. They weren't substantive. We sent it back to our attorney. We all agreed that the MOU was acceptable as written. And they've approved it, so now it's our turn. Are there any questions from board members?
Madam President, is that fine? Okay. I think it's great that we're doing this with the city. I would like us to, sometime down the road, explore how to open some of the other playground areas that we have in other areas, excuse me, particularly on the south side of town and over in San Felipe. There may be a way to fence off a section of the playground that's at Lamar that we could be able to open to the community as well for what we're going to do on the north side.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Do we have, just a comment, if we haven't looked at the playground, what type of swings and stuff we're gonna have out there, I do wanna make a suggestion that we take kids with disabilities and handicap and buy things that they can use and play out there in the playground, for this new school.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Recommendation, please.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees authorize the superintendent of schools to sign the memorandum of understanding for the development of the park.
Heard the recommendation, motion made by Mr. Smith. Is there a second? Mr. Contreras. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously by 6 votes. Go on to the next item, 11A, curriculum instruction. Consideration to approve instructional material allotment and TEACS certification form for the 2022-2023 school year. Ida Gomez.
Good evening again, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. The IMA certification comes to you every year. It's not for approval, but it is for an informational item. There are 3 things that have to be certified by the board. One is that IMA funds can only be used for instructional materials, and anything that we do purchase does come to the board for approval. 2, that all our instructional materials cover all our TEACs and every grade level and every content, which we do have all the resources for that. And then 3rd, that upon request, we would be able to provide TEA with all the titles that we have purchased using the allotment. So that's what the board certifies. Now this year there is a little bit of a difference. It's always been a 1-page certification, just kind of saying that. This year there's a 41-page document that we attached in your board. We were asked to go through and basically provide them information as to whether the materials are district created, teacher created, or publisher created. So we had to look at ELA, we had to look at math, science, and social studies and provide that information. They were real strong on our phonics. We had to answer questions about the phonics programs. And then they were very big on supplemental materials. So you'll see that throughout the pages, we did check off all the supplemental materials that the district does use. We did list all our instructional materials as whether they were curriculum or supplemental based. And the way it's going to work now is if there are any changes to the document, Dr. Rios would have to make the changes before submitting the document. If there are no changes, then we would make the recommendation either way, and he would still submit. The difference is that he does the submitting of the document based on the 41-page information that we supplied in the survey.
Any questions from board members? Recommendation, please.
The recommendation. It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approves the district instructional materials allotment and TEAC certification form to be submitted as confirmation of compliance meeting the certifications outlined above.
For the recommendation from administration, is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Contreras, seconded by Mr. Orfeld. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
6 votes. Item 12, Technology and Operations, consideration to approve a change order with AAA Roofing LLC in the amount not to exceed $46,000, funding source, general funds for the district-wide roof repairs. Israel Carrera.
Mr. Mesa, if I may, I'll ask Mr. Carrera to read the recommendation. But I shared a board update. Basically what happened was that on this building, when we submitted the numbers for the roof repair, we didn't cover all the square footage. So we were short in our calculations. That's why we're bringing this change order, because the actual cost would increase by $46,000. But it simply had to do with wrong numbers that we used when we came up with the contract. In essence, we're having a change order to cover that difference. Questions?
That was, so this has nothing to do with insurance claims? This is coming out of
No, sir, it's entirely coming out of insurance money.
okay, so is this right then? Because this is general funds?
Yes, sir, we take the insurance money and we deposit it into our general fund account.
Okay, but the original was an adjustment?
Yes, sir.
Okay, got it.
Dr. Rios, I read somewhere that It's a TPO that we didn't figure on,
That is correct, sir.
not the square footage.
Well,
What's the
Oh.
square footage
square
of the
footage of the
TPO?
Okay, we did not include the TPO, okay. All right, because I remember seeing, I know what the TPO is, a foam
Real thin.
4x8 sheet. Okay. So the recommendation,
It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the change order with AAA LLC in the amount not to exceed $46,000 for roofing repairs at the Student Performance Center.
got the recommendation from administration, is there a motion for approval?
Let me make one more
Yes.
question so
Yes.
that I'm clear. On, when we made the insurance adjustment, we considered those, whatever it was, 8,000 square foot. The insurance company considered the 8,000 square, and we didn't as we went chasing the contractor to do the work, for clarity.
Yes, sir, that's exactly what it was. See, the insurance company doesn't fund us on everything that was damaged. That's why we're going through that lawsuit with the insurance company. They measured all of the roofs in the district that were TPO, and they only funded us for so many of them. So they entirely considered everything. But because we did a contract for different campuses that needed TPO roof, and we miscalculated this one, that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you for the clarity.
Anyone else with a question? Okay, you've read the recommendation, is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Contreras, seconded by Mr. Smith. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously with 6 votes. Yes, question, Mr. Ophel.
Excuse myself from the meeting.
Yes. Okay. At this time, Mr. Ophel will be leaving the meeting. For the record. Next item we have is 13, Business and Finance Consideration to approve the submittal of the Head Start Continuance Funding Grant application in the amount of $2,527,857 with non-federal funds of $624,500 for a total amount of $3,152,357 to the Region 6 Head Start Office, along with the annual report to public self-assessment, community assessment, training and technical assistance, cost allocation plan, selection criteria, program goals, and school readiness plan. Dr. Alana Talamantes Elizondo.
Good evening, members of the board, Mr. Rios, Dr. Rios, and Mr. Mesa. I'm Alana Talamantes, the director of Irene C. Cardwell Head Start and Pre-K. I am here on behalf of the Head Start families and students to present the Head Start Continuing Grant and MOUs for 2022-2023. For the Head Start grant for Head Start program operations, $2,495,461. This primarily is used for 90% of our salaries and day-to-day program procedures. Head Start training and technical assistance, $32,396. Total funding is equivalent to $2,527,857. Our funded federal enrollment is 346 children. Non-federal share is provided by the district of $624,500. Memorandums of understanding that we have with the committee are listed for health providers, schools, daycare centers, and community agencies. May I make the recommendation for the Head Start grant?
Questions? Yes.
Yes. It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the submittal of the attached application for the Head Start Continuation Funding Grant for the 2022-2023 fiscal year, along with the annual report to the public, self-assessment, community assessment, training and technical assistance plan, cost allocation plan, selection criteria, program goals, and school readiness plan to be submitted to the appropriate Head Start headquarters as presented and authorized by Mr. Raymond Mesa, San Felipe Del Rio, CISD, Board President to sign.
You've heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mrs. Webb. All those in favor? Motion carries by 5 votes.
So I'll proceed with the recommendation for the MOUs. It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the memorandums of understanding and authorize the superintendent to sign the memorandums of understanding as presented.
For the recommendation, again, MOUs are from different organizations that assist the Head Start program. Motion made by Mr. Smith. Is there a second? Mr. Contreras? All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously by 5 votes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, motion carries.
Thank you on behalf of the Head Start families and children.
Okay, Dr. Alana, before we, I had a couple of questions, just to double check. First of all, I just want to make sure that, will there be a cost of living allocation coming later?
Yes, the National Office of Head Start Association notified me through communique that President Biden is increasing the COLA at 2.8%. So in May, we'll be notified of the award, and then we'll present it to the board.
Okay, that'll be separate.
Yes, that will be
And more
separate.
than likely, that will be utilized for either salaries?
Salaries, yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, and then my other question is, on the last on-site visit, were the deficiencies that perhaps were outlined, were they corrected?
We didn't have any deficiencies. For our focus area 1, there were no deficiencies. We did, everything was in compliance and correct. Our focus area 2, we have not received our 45-day notice for that.
Okay, so is there still testing for lead
I met with,
exposure?
for the lead testing of the building, I have met with Mr. Carrera and Mr. Carcasey, and they're looking into that for our building.
So it will be done?
Once I get an update, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
we haven't had it in the 2.5 years that I've been there.
Okay. I just want to make sure that, you know,
up to par
it's
with that.
one of the requirements that.
Yes, we did meet.
Okay. And as far as meeting the needs of the students, you still have a waiting list?
Yes, sir, we do. We are right now at 337. We still get funded for 346 students, but we go up 10 students and then back down when COVID numbers spike. But we are 337, and we're servicing 483 students, 84 pre-K, and then we have our special ed students and our life skills unit for the AM and the PM.
And I just wanted to just applaud the efforts that are being made for registration. I see those signs everywhere.
Yes, we got COVID money for that, so we're promoting URSIA and recruitment as much as we can.
Great, great.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
And thank you. The school board, you do provide us with facilities, transportation, maintenance, assistance, technology, so we're grateful for that as well. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item we have is item 13B, consideration to approve memorandums of understanding in accordance with section 64.E5 of the, we already approved that. I'm sorry, that was a package. It's a separate items, but human resource. Item 14A, discussion possible action to approve employees' job descriptions, evaluation forms. Aide Garcia.
Yes, good evening again, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. In your board packet, you have a job description for the attendance discipline clerk to be updated. This is in order to be aligned with her current role and responsibilities. In red are all the responsibilities that were removed, and in blue, the new responsibilities. And this is the only job description that we're recommending today to be updated. Any questions?
Question from board members? No. Recommendation.
It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the employee job description and evaluation forms as discussed.
For the recommendation from administration, is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mrs. Webb. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Next item we have is consideration to approve the updates to the 2021-2022 district compensation plans. Aide Garcia.
Yes, sir. On this compensation pay plan, the only thing that we're updating is for the summer school rates to add the rate for a food service cook. This was not in the compensation plan for last year, and food service requested for this position to be added.
Questions from board members? We're glad to see that on there. No questions, so recommendation, please.
It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the updates to the 2021-2022 district compensation plans as presented.
For the recommendation from administration, is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Ms. Gonzalez, seconded by Mr. Smith. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. There being no items under administration, the time is 8:26 p.m. We're going to go into closed session permitted by sections 551.074 and 551.071 of the Texas Education Code. No action will be taken. We will reconvene into open session if action is required. We're now in closed session. Okay, the time is 10:38 p.m. and we were doing so well. We're reconvening into open session. No action was taken in executive. We're down to item 18A on our agenda. Consideration to approve the personnel report to include the following: new hires, district vacancies, retirements, resignations. Aide Garcia.
Good evening again. It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the following new personnel: Octavio Ortiz, fourth grade teacher at Dr. Fermin Calderon. Flor Cantu, kindergarten teacher, Dr. Fermin Calderon. CTE business teacher, Emmanuel Odin at Del Rio High School. Luis Gallegos, CTE business education dual credit teacher at Early College High School.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Contreras, seconded by Mr. Smith. All those in favor? Mr. Smith, you're in favor?
I am, maybe, I'm in favor, yeah.
Okay.
It
Motion
seems
carries.
like the list is short.
But we have some others coming up.
Okay, got it.
Yes. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Next item that we have is consideration to approve the administrator and professional contracts. Aide Garcia.
It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve the administrator professional contract as discussed in closed session.
Any questions? There was only one. Motion made by Mr. Contreras. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Smith. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. 5-4. Item C, consideration to approve the position of speech language pathologist for the special ed department. Aide Garcia.
It is the recommendation of administration that the Board of Trustees approve Josie Muñiz Padilla as speech-language pathologist for the special education department.
For the recommendation, is there a motion for approval? Motion made by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mrs. Webb. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. Item D, consideration to approve a board resolution for the sale of surplus real property. Dr. Carlos Rios.
Board President Mesa, members of the board, it is the recommendation of the administration that the board approve the resolution for the sale of surplus real property as discussed in closed session. And for the record, we're talking about just that one property.
Okay. Questions from board members? I think all of us know. Okay, no questions, so I'll entertain a motion for approval. Motion by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously. There being no other items on the agenda, is there a motion for adjournment? Motion made by Mrs. Webb, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you and good night, everyone.